All right, so these are going to be the notes for solving quadratic equations. So right here you see it says find the x-intercepts of the related function of y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So now we take a look at this, what we have right here, and it says solve the quadratic equation by graphing, and it gives us the equations, and then we have to just graph it and solve it. So this is going to be actually done in the calculator, okay? But at the bottom, before we go over this, let's kind of talk about this information right here, okay? So I'm actually going to type this in first, and then I'm going to write how to find these, and I'm going to write the actual answers related to number one. So first off, when we're graphing this in the calculator, we want it to equal y, not 0. So that's a 0 there. Put everything on one side, make it a y. So number one, let's add a graph. So we're going to do x squared minus x minus 6. Okay, and there's the graph. Okay, let's take this. Let's just move this out of the way here. All right, so let's go one by one over here. All right, first thing is the vertex. So things you didn't know about this calculator that you will now. So to find the vertex, it's actually pretty easy. The calculator will actually calculate that for you. So it's going to be menu 6 like before, but this time we're going to go to this bottom one, analyze conics number 8. You can either type down or just press number 8. Then we have like a list of a lot of things here. So we're going to do menu 6, 8. And my first one I'm looking for is the vertex, and you see this word vertices? That's actually the vertex there. So here I'm going to press number 2. When I press number 2, you'll notice nothing actually happened. But if you take your little cursor and you go to the actual graph and you just hover over it, you see it puts that number there, and you just click down, and then it actually gives you the vertex, 1/2, comma, negative 25 over 4. So that's the vertex for number 1. And you can actually go over here and graph that. We'll do that in a moment. All right, next thing is the axis of symmetry, okay? Now, hopefully from previous lessons, you know that the axis of symmetry is just the x value of the vertex, but you can actually find that in the calculator. Again, you're gonna do menu 6, and again, analyze the conic 8. So menu 6, 8. And the axis of symmetry, you see where it says axis of symmetry number 4? Now, again, you just go to the graph because nothing's happened, right? When you go to the graph and you actually touch it, and you click on it, you can actually see that something popped up. So let me move this out of the way so I can kind of see it a little bit better. And there we go. And you can see the equation it gives us is that x equals 1/2. Okay, so now we got the axis of symmetry, and you'll notice that it is graphed like a dashed line, and it's labeled x equals 1/2. For x-intercepts, menu 6. And this one we've already been doing before, so that's menu 6, and it should be 1 for 0, right? Because 0 means x-intercept. So let's put the little word 0 right there so we remember what that is. Okay, and we'll do that. Now over here, there's 2 x-intercepts. So I'm gonna start from the left one. So I go to the left side, I click down the middle, and I slide the cursor to the right. When it says the word 0 right there, click down. And my first root we can see is at negative 2, comma 0. So my first root is at negative 2, comma 0. But as you can see on this graph, there's 2 of them. So we're going to do it again, menu 6, 1. We go to the right side now. We click down, then we slide over until it says the word 0, and there it is again. So now we have our second root at 3, 0. Okay? And this information, I'm just going to plot it on there and make my graph. All right, for the next one, it says the y-intercept. All right, so we've actually been doing the y-intercept. We just never really talked about it. But when you do the menu 5, 1, when you trace the graph, menu 5, 1, the calculator, the first point it always takes you to, if you look at it, 0, comma, negative 6, that's actually the y-intercept, right? So every time we did menu 5, 1 before, the point automatically took us to the y-intercept. Okay, so that's how you find it in the calculator. Minimum and maximum, we've been using that already for a little bit. So this one, let's press escape. We're going to do menu 6. So for minimum and maximum. So minimum was menu 6. And this one, the minimum, it says number 2. And for the maximum, menu 6, 3. So you do the minimum when your graph is facing up. You do the maximum when your graph is facing down. So in this case here, our graph was facing up, so that's going to be minimum, number 2. And we look for the vertex, and we know it's already right there, but we're going to click down. We're going to scroll over, And once the dot stops, right, because before the dot was moving and now it's actually stopped, and we can see that the minimum is at 0.5, negative 6.25. So 0.5, comma, negative 6.25. Now this minimum maximum is actually the same thing as a vertex, and you can see that 1/2 is 0.5, and you did negative 25 over 4, you would get negative 6.25. So that's how you get those two. The nice thing about the vertex one is you don't actually have to see the vertex. If you just click the graph, it automatically pops up wherever it is and it shows you the vertex. Over here, you have to be able to see the vertex. Like in this one here, if I couldn't see the vertex, I would have to adjust the window so I could see it. Over here, for the first one, if the vertex was not even on the graph, as long as you can touch the graph, the vertex will show. All right, the last thing is the table, right? Okay, so the table is pretty easy. We haven't done that much, but it's a Control T. So Control T, and you can see it pops up. This first one is pretty straightforward. X, that's my X column. This one, F1 of X, remember we talked about F of X, that's actually Y. So these are my Y values. And if you go to X, you can see how you can scroll up and down. You go to Y, you can also scroll up and down. And you can see that it gives you the numbers you need. And I'm just gonna take these numbers and I'm gonna make my graph now. I already knew that my roots were at negative 2, 0, and 3, 0. All right, so those are my roots. And over here, I'll just kind of plot a couple of points. We have 0, negative 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we have 1, negative 6. Whoops, sorry. And let's take a look at 2. 2 is negative 4. And this one's negative 4. And now the one thing you can't see is the vertex, because if you look at it, 1/2 negative 25 over 4, or 0.5 negative 6.25, that one's not really going to register on here. So there's a half, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.25. So we'll say it's about right there. And there's my graph. Now, when you solve, right, this is the important part. When you're solving these quadratic functions, all you have to do is tell me where the x-intercepts are, what the solutions are. So this one, the solutions are negative 2, 0, and the other one is 3, 0, okay? Now, on this second one right here, what you're gonna do, you wanna make sure everything is on the same side, and like pretty much standard form. So I would subtract this 4x over, and then I would get negative 2x squared minus 4x minus 2 is equal to 0. And I told you when we put in the calculator, we want it as y equals. All right, and let's go ahead and just type this in. Because if I gave you a graph, I think you could count it and see it. But in case you get like an equation, you're just gonna go to y equals, you're gonna type it in. All right. And then to find your roots, you can see there's only one, so we're gonna do menu 6, 1, because that's our 0. To the left, scroll over, to the right, and we can see our root is at negative 1, 0. So my solution here is negative 1, comma 0. And if we want to check our table, make sure it's right, Control T. So we have 1, negative 8. So we have 0, negative 2, then 1, negative 8, and the rest should be good. And we can see that our only x-intercept is right here, and it's at negative 1, 0. Now, if I gave you a graph, so if I just gave you a graph, you have to make sure that you can say, okay, this is negative 1, 0, and write that as an ordered pair. All right, other than that, that concludes the notes for today. The assignment is on Schoology.